Um, I'm interested, is there a difference culturally between working in England, the UK, and then working in America in terms of the performance experience with the musicians here and also then the relationship with the audience? Do you see any big changes, or is this, or differences, or do you see it pretty much as universal? You know, whether you're working in London or Chicago, you're working with musicians at the very top, and then audiences are there because they love this music and they come to hear you and the ensemble. But just interested, are there any differences at all between over there and over here?
Yes, yes, there are. But maybe the differences are not national differences. Um, it's a difficult thing. I mean, mostly the players that I work with in the UK play in chamber orchestras all the time. So they're not symphonic players. So whereas, and the music of the Baroque, as we know, is players taken from the symphony and the lyric opera, among others. And so you feel a real buzz of sort of relief and release from their usual, you know, from their daytime jobs, in a way. It's something that's a little bit, something that's a little bit special. And I don't always get that in the UK, because they're turning up for work and they're thinking, oh, we got some nice music to do today, and maybe thinking of what they're going to have for dinner that night, or so on. I don't get that feeling with music of the Baroque, and it's a fantastic sort of mixture of you know, excitement, professionalism, curiosity. How do we do this? You know, because we've been playing Tchaikovsky or Stravinsky all day. I mean, all day. This is the same day that they're doing this stuff. So, you know, I remember doing, you know, concerts after half the orchestra had been playing Parsifal in the afternoon. You know, what on earth, what must they be feeling apart from exhausted? You know, so, so I always was aware that not that I had to give them a good time, but that actually together we would make something very special with this mixture of that they had. This is a sort of conglomeration of influences that were going on in their head, and it always worked. It always worked, particularly on a Sunday evening, I was thinking, because, you know, that was when they had their opera matinees. And somehow their exhaustion had just sort of completely dissipated, and the energy just completely came back.
Now, I mentioned that we're going to be looking forward to the Bach Brandenburg concertos in their entirety, and also Handel's Messiah. It's actually over 10 years since Music of the Baroque did Messiah. I mean, we know Messiah is done every Christmas by numerous companies just here in Chicago. So we wanted to do it because it's our 50th year, but also because you will do it very differently. This is what's fascinating. A work that's well known, but can be recreated and reinvented depending on who's on the podium, and then that very unique collection of musicians, the instrumentalists, the singers, the soloists. So could you tell us a little bit about why we should be looking forward so much to Messiah under your direction, and also maybe something on the Brandenburgs?
Yes, well, you know, Messiah is a work in progress for me. I've done over 100 performances, and maybe it's the only piece that I've done over 100 performances, but it never gets stale. And I'm not going to go into detail about how I do this and how I do that, but I always feel at the beginning of the evening that I think, here we go. You know, this is something, and it doesn't. I don't think of it oh my God, this is 2.5 hours or two hours of very hard work. And it slips by. I mean, it really does. And I feel that it has its, I mean, maybe like no other piece, has its own momentum. It drives itself. And as of course, one of the things that I've benefited from doing it so many times is that I sort of know how I want to do it now, in that it isn't fixed, but it is, and of course it's always reliant on who's playing and who's singing. It's, thank goodness for that. If you were condemned to doing messiahs with the same group for, the whole of your life, just think how dull that would be. And just think how it wouldn't move on. It wouldn't change. And this is one of the things I have to just fit this in. I've been doing this in lockdown. When lockdown started, I began to write about Messiah, about my experiences as a sort of my 9-year-old self listening to it, but then my early performances, my early playing in performances rather than conducting, and then and also about how I feel about each number. So there's a sort of little bit of an analysis about, analysis is the wrong word, just a description of how I think it goes and what it's about. And this is the thing that I'm sort of struggling with a bit, the text. And I've written quite at length about how the text is on two layers, the Old Testament, and how that the Old Testament really is about what's going on 500-700 years before Christ is born, and really doesn't in any way refer to Jesus Christ, even though St. Matthew and Charles Jennens himself pulled it forward. And of course they call it prophecy. Well, you can call it what you like, but it's not it's not fortune telling, and that's what the prophets were talking about, their own time, their own stuff that was about to happen maybe in 20 years time. And particularly with Isaiah, who is a bit, anyway, this is one of the things that I'm wrestling with. It doesn't actually affect my performance in any way, but I do want listeners to understand that, when you hear, behold, a virgin shall conceive, it's not about the Virgin Mary. It's not even the word virgin doesn't mean virgin. In Greek, it means young woman. So that goes out the window. It's a wonderful, clever, and poignant way of describing Jesus Christ's conception and birth. But how else would you do it? And Jennens was very, very clever in that he chose all those pieces from the Old Testament that were echoed in the New Testament, and therefore, in a way, that the work was done for him. But that's just my thing, and I've written about it, and one day I might put it out as a pamphlet or something like that. What you do these days. I mean, I don't write books like Jane does, but I'll pass it round and see what people think about it. And then the Brandenburgs, well, you know, I mean, the Brandenburgs have been as much part of my life as Messiah has, I suppose. The idea of doing all in one concert, I did this first time in the early 70s, and I thought, nobody wants to hear all the Brandenburgs in one concert, let alone play them. And I was so wrong. Um, uh, you know, I did this in Birmingham, I think it was, with a student group, and people were absolutely thrilled. I mean, I could hardly walk afterwards and think. You know, I certainly couldn't sleep afterwards, and you know, I've done it quite a lot since. Obviously, in Chicago, quite a lot because of the, you know, because of the Civic, and with the CSO, I did them all too, 5 nights running. I mean, that was something. That was quite a marathon, really. But again, they have their own momentum. They're quite extraordinary in the sense that they're all concertos for different instruments. You know, sometimes the keys are the same, but you're never going to hear the same thing twice between the concertos, even if some of the figuration is the same. And you know, everybody has fun with the Brandenburgs, even the violas, for God's sake, in number 6. And you know, they don't have such a great time in Baroque music, except unless they're playing Bach, actually. But you know, in the Handel viola parts aren't the best. And yeah, and then, you know, you've got all this incredible virtuosity and and just wonderful serenity. There's everything in it. I mean, it just has all. It has it all.
Is there one Baroque work that you haven't conducted that you would like to conduct?
Yeah. So that's a very difficult thing. And I actually been thinking about this a lot. And the answer is no, there isn't. And probably if you'd asked me that 20 years ago, I would have said, oh, I'd want to do the Missa Solemnis, Beethoven. I want to do all the Handel oratorios, every one of them. But actually I found that I've done all the ones I want to do. But what I would say is there are pieces that I've only done once that I really want to do again. And I'm afraid it's not Baroque, but Idomeneo is one. Right. I did it once and it wasn't very happy, but I would just so adored the music, and the whole drama of it was incredibly exciting. And that was about 6 years ago. So I would like to do it again. The other one that I've only done once is L'Allegro ed il Penseroso, which is just one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. And I did it once and it was absolutely wonderful, even though I say it myself. It was in 1983 or something like that, or 85. And yeah, I would really love to do that again. Solomon is another one, that oratorio. I've done it only once. And just to throw this in, it's not Baroque, I realize, but the Janacek Sinfonietta is something I've always wanted to conduct. Not because I have great ideas for it, just because I've known it since I was about 15. I heard it at the proms, and I completely blew my mind with 14 trumpets at the back of the stage. And I know it so well now that I could probably get through it. But you know, that's not the point about conducting. Is, you know, you actually have to say some things about it. So it's not serious. Don't program that for me, Declan, next year.
So we would probably have difficulty getting Janacek into music of the Baroque, but you mentioned two fantastic Handel works there, Solomon and L'Allegro. And
Yes.
so we'll put those on the list for the future. I know Jane Glover, our music director, has conducted L'Allegro with music
I
of the
know,
Baroque.
lucky thing.
And we've done Solomon, but I think it's some time ago. So
Yes.
let's put them on the list and see where we get to.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of retiring anytime soon, just so that you know.
Well, we will look forward to seeing you back here in Chicago. I know our audience will have enjoyed hearing and seeing you, albeit online. I think I wanted to finish up by just asking you, what do you miss most about Chicago? And then I'll give you the final word if there's anything else you would like to say until we meet in person again.
Well, I miss you guys. I do. I mean, you know, I miss cycling up and down the lake. I, I just miss seeing you because, you know, you and the band and the office staff and my friends there. I just miss that so much. And I miss performing. And I mean, that's, after all, what I do in Chicago. I don't go to Chicago to have a holiday. but I get one. You know, if you get my meaning,
Right.
it feels like a holiday because it's it's just I feel so privileged, if you like, to know all of you and to be able to do something as um, I don't know, as fulfilling as playing music as a profession. I never ever think that I never forget how what a privilege that is. But I really, you know, I can't wait to be there. I cannot wait to be there and see you all. And I'm just so grateful that you thought of this. This is such a nice idea.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Nicholas. We miss you too, and we will look forward to seeing you when everything starts to get back to normal. And so looking forward to the Brandenburgs and Messiah. Thank you so much for joining us today, and stay well.
Great pleasure. You too. Bye.
Bye.